Hi, let's look at creating a website. So what do we need if we want to set up our own website? So the first thing we need to do is register a domain name. So we can do this with a DNS register or a delegate. So once we have chosen a domain name and checked that it's not registered yet by anybody else, it's actually a quite very simple process and can be completed in a few clicks at your DNS register office. So what we also need is a server that has a 24/7 internet connection and that can process the web requests that are addressed at our domain. And we need obviously a good upload bandwidth, because otherwise it doesn't go fast and people will not visit it again. So if we work for a big company, we'll surely have an internet access possibility that has good bandwidth, and we even have an IT department that can help us running several web servers. If we are on our own, we have a small firm, then maybe the best solution is to start to outsource these servers, and we can do this by a service called hosting. So once we have our server, our own server or a hosted server, we can make our websites, and what we have to do is create and deploy all the pages of the website. So in the early days, what we would do, we would make them one by one using an HTML text editor. But nowadays we've got far more better options, and we can just install and use a content management system that gives us tools that can easily create and manage sites with its upgrades. So let's look a little bit more in detail into what is hosting. So web hosting is a service that is being offered by companies that allows individuals and small organizations to make their websites accessible on the internet. So web hosts are companies basically that provide space on a server that is owned or leased by their clients. They also provide internet connectivity, and they typically are in a data center. So the servers they provide have all the necessary software that we need to run our web and file server, for example, and it usually comes with various installing profiles that enable you to install most common software you need, like this content management system or e-commerce sites, blogging platforms, email servers, and so on. So what you usually pay for this hosting service depends on the amount of storage you want on your servers for your files, the software you want to have installed, and for example a minimum guaranteed bandwidth. Before you contract some hosting servers, you might want to check whether you can actually install and use all the software you're planning to use to set up your website, and how easy it is to install and how easy it is to manage. So depending on the needs of your customers, different hosting types can be chosen. You have free web hosting, which is free, but it has some conditions, mainly related to limited bandwidth, for example, or limited space, or some advertising that you have to look at. There's shared web hosting. That means that you have web server resources that you share with other websites. There's dedicated hosting, where the customer administrates the servers with root privileges. There's cluster hosting, which means that we have multiple servers with the same contents that we can use for better resource utilization. And there's cloud hosting. This is more scalable and reliable than standard server hosting and is done in the cloud. Shared web hosting is nowadays most of the time the most effective solution to start a small website. And hosting companies also usually offer a domain registry service, so you can buy the domain and the hosting at the same time. And it's easy to configure, and it's less flexible, obviously, if you later on want to change your hosting. So when you want to create a website, we've seen that you need a registered domain that you can do through some internet hosting company. You need a web server software, but you need more. You need, for example, an FTP server to be able to easily upload and download the files that make up your server. You need a mail server to have email accounts with your domain, and you might need a database service, since nowadays most of these content management systems that were mentioned early use databases to store web content. So you need to install these three things too. But these services are basically always offered by default by most web hosting companies. So let's look a little bit more at these content management systems. It's basically an application that you can use to create, deploy and manage all pages of a website from one central interface. So as the name indicates, Web Content Management System, it manages content that is present in your website. So it manages text, graphics, photos, videos, audio, and even JavaScript code. So it can help you organize files and provide version control access to them. It can provide procedures to manage workflow if you're using it in a collaborative working environment. It can store the content in a database, and it provides tools and graphical interfaces to easily manage all these pages and contents. So, content management systems aim to avoid the need for HTML hand coding, like it was done before, but it gives the user the possibility to do this for flexibility and transition to no HTML hand coding at all. Most popular content management systems have a graphical interface and are open source, so you can install them on your server and then just try to start to use them. And they're mostly developed in a server-side programming language that is called PHP. So these content management systems are modular, so this basically means that they consist of a core and external plugins that you can use to augment functionality. So there's, for example, plugins for different themes that can make you change the complete appearance of your site with a few clicks, or plugins for email, plugins for Facebook, or any other functionality that you might want to add. Some of these plugins are for free, and others you have to pay for, and you can find them in some central repository for plugins. Examples of general CMS that are around are, for example, Drupal. Drupal is complex but quite powerful. You have Joomla, and there's also WordPress. WordPress is possibly the most popular CMS today that actually evolved from a blogging platform, but nowadays powers the making of websites for most small and medium-sized companies. So there's also open source e-commerce content management systems that you can use to build a whole e-commerce online store, for example, and these are called Magento or PrestaShop.